Das JobRad Fahrradheldinnen-Interview zum Hören.
JobRad Fahrradheldinnen sind Menschen, die wie wir fürs Fahrrad und für eine smarte Mobilität für alle brennen. Und genau wie wir daran arbeiten, Menschen aufs Rad zu bringen.
And cycling seemed very, very fun, very freeing, but at the same time, I wasn't sure that I was qualified to be a cyclist.
Sarah M. Jasat ist your cycling bestie, also deine Fahrradfahrende beste Freundin. Mit diesem Versprechen erreicht sie täglich Tausende von Menschen auf Instagram. Die Content-Kreatorin aus Großbritannien bricht humorvoll und authentisch viele Stereotypen über das Radfahren. Sie zeigt, man muss nicht super schnell auf einem Gravelbike durch die Gegend sausen und dabei super enge Sportklamotten tragen, um eine leidenschaftliche Radfahrerin zu sein. Grund genug, ihr den Titel JobRad Fahrradheldin zu verleihen. Im folgenden Interview, das wir auf Englisch geführt haben, erzählt sie ihre Geschichte. Das Video gibt es mit deutschem Untertitel. Sarah, welcome to our JobRad Fahrradhelden interview. We are so excited to have you here. We are big fans of your Insta channel, Your Cycling Bestie. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Sarah, also from me, a warm welcome that you're here. So let's go straight into the Sarah, or to the Sarah 10 years ago. When you think about you 10 years ago and thinking about commuting or perceiving the traffic on the streets, what were you thinking about that time when you saw someone who's on a bike?
Oh yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be part of this conversation too. So I only started cycling, I feel like, more recently in my life, and when I first sort of graduated from university and came into the world of work, my idea was more or less that I would drive. I didn't have strong feelings about driving. It didn't seem like the best thing to do in the world, but I thought it was very normal. And it was only when I started to face the reality of, as a working person, driving in to work and home every single day, having to deal with the traffic, the congestion, which, you know, was worse than probably what it had been in my childhood. So I realized this just doesn't seem like any way to live. This doesn't seem like the lifestyle that I want. And that's when I started looking for alternatives, and cycling seemed very, very fun, very freeing. But at the same time, I wasn't sure that I was qualified to be a cyclist, and I wasn't sure how to get from where I was, which was someone who was just maybe curious about bikes, to someone who I would see cycling confidently, the right gear, owning the road. I didn't really know how to go from A to B.
Mm-hmm. And now you started this year in March in 2025, the Insta channel Your Cycling Bestie. And there are so many fascinating reels. And one of the most popular and my favorite reel is a reel where you stand in the kitchen cutting fruit and talking about your cycling life. We will show it to our audience who may be not knowing you.
Do I cycle fast? No. But do I cycle far? Also no. But do I know a lot about bikes? No. And can I do a lot of my own maintenance? No. And do I go to some amazing scenic routes? No. But do I have a plan so that I can learn more about bikes and improve my cycling? I do not. But you know what I do have? I do have a pink bike, and not a lot of people have got a pink bike.
Okay, it's a very funny video. And what's your mission with your Insta channel?
When I started cycling, and when I started I really enjoyed it, and almost straight away I was seeing all these benefits to my life, and I couldn't believe how much better it was to have a cycle to work rather than a drive to work. But when I was speaking to people about it, I'd be like, oh, it's so great. Yeah, I cycle. And they'd be like really apprehensive, and they'd have this perception that I was doing something really hard, really dangerous, really unpleasant. A lot of the time people would be quite sympathetic. And I was really surprised because for me, cycling was so much fun and was giving me this whole new life that I hadn't thought was even possible. It was changing the way that I was parenting. It was changing the way I viewed my work and my career. And it was improving my health. And I just felt that there was this misunderstanding of what cycling is and who it's for and what it does for you. So that's why I started the Instagram, because I wanted to show it can be so fun. Like, I'm having a great time. I'm not doing this because I hate it, but I just feel it's the right thing to do, or it's so hard, but I have no choice, or I'm not being forced to cycle. Like, I love it, and it's so great, and it can offer so many benefits. So I just wanted to make an Instagram which would show my everyday, really fun cycling life and show that it can be really fun and really easy and add a lot to your life.
Sarah, I think that's a very interesting point, because we have to keep in mind we are here located in Freiburg, which is some kind of, I would say, bicycle capital in Germany. So like we have separated bike lanes, everything on. So maybe you can give our viewers or listeners or general our audience some kind of idea about how heavy, or I mean how cycling in Leicester, where you come from, or where you live, like somewhere in the middle of the it's not somewhere, but in the middle of the UK. What does cycling look like there? How does cycling look like
absolutely. There? I mean, things are changing fast, but I would say still in 2025 in the UK, there is this perception that cycling is recreation. Mm-hmm. So it's either sport, you know, I go out at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning and I cycle 100 kilometers or something like that. And I wear special clothes and I have special shoes and I get in front of cars and the cars hate me and I hate the cars. There's a lot of that. And then there's the other side where it's, I want my kids to cycle. I drive them to the park with their bicycles and they cycle around the park and then we drive home. It's a toy. Mm-hmm. So the idea of the bike as like a feasible mode of transport is still very new and still seen a little bit more niche. It is changing. Leicester has put a lot of effort into building cycle lanes and offering cycling provision. But I would say for a lot of journeys, you still have to be quite dedicated to cycling to be able to do it. So, for example, even if your route is fine, if you get to your destination and there's nowhere to park your bike, what are you going to do? The next time you have to make that journey, you're going to think twice about taking your bike because there's nowhere to park it safely. Or, you know, sometimes you have a route where you have to be cycling alongside cars that are quite, they might be driving quite aggressive. So there's kind of a lot of factors which mean that at the moment, if you really are cycling for transport, you're probably a very specific kind of person. Mm-hmm. It is definitely expanding. I think awareness of, you know, the problems with being sedentary, awareness of the climate crisis, and frankly, the cost of living means that fueling your car is so expensive. Owning a car is becoming more and more expensive. But we've not quite got to that position where it is actually plausible to say, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my car because I don't want to keep paying for it anymore, and I'm going to get a bike. Mm-hmm. Because for a lot of people, that's just it's not a feasible option because their daily journeys, their work journeys in particular, don't allow it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's still it's still a work in progress.
But the bike is the solution for everything. That what you said in another podcast. It's like a medicine for everything. Could you explain that to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a millennial, and our millennial problems are that we we're not getting enough exercise. Our mental health is not very good. We don't have any money. For those of us that are parents, our children are just on screens all the time. We don't get out in nature. We're not, we need to be more mindful. So, all of these things and more are just addressed with cycling. So one of my biggest amazing takeaways was that my kids who either want to be on screens, luckily now that the older one can read, she'll read books, but they do have an inclination. If you give them the option, they'll try to get the screen. We lose remotes a lot in our house because that's the only way to get around it. But what I found, especially when my kids were younger, is they wanted to do a lot of creative play with me, a lot of role playing, and I'm just not good at that. And they would be always asking me, oh, you're this person, you say that. No, you don't say it like that. You say it now. No, don't put that there. No, it's not like that. And I'd be like, I'm really struggling to keep up with this play. Whereas when we'd go out on the bikes, it would just be this lovely experience. We're out together in the natural world. We're experiencing things together. We're kind of communicating with each other. We're seeing things afresh. We're sharing a wonderful moment. And often we'd be doing something very basic, like, getting some groceries. Mm-hmm. But using the bike as that transport just completely transformed how I was parenting. And instead of, oh, I need an hour's peace, here, have the iPad, it was like, I need an hour's recharge, let's go for a bike ride. Mm-hmm. And it's really, I think the more that I've cycled with my kids, the more that I see it's really developed them. So my older child now, she's 8, and I think she's got so much confidence from cycling. When she first started school, she was quite nervous. The first 3 months, she would be quite upset when I dropped her off. And then had the idea. No, I used to walk with her.
Oh, okay.
And then we had the idea, why doesn't she come on her balance bike? I'll walk and she can go on the balance bike. And it made such a difference that she was starting the day really confident, really excited. She loved cycling into the playground. She used to wear these sunglasses with her helmet. And the other kids would say, oh, she came in on her bike. The teachers would ask, did you come on your bike? I think it gave her a sense of identity. And this was, it was a new area, school, mm-hmm. but she was entering it with something that she was familiar with.
And experiencing freedom. She was like, that's what we all feel when we are on our bikes.
Yeah, definitely. It was something that she was confident of her own skill and her own identity as someone who loves her balance bike. Well, she used to be obsessed with her balance bike. And it was able to, by doing a journey on balance bike instead of walking, it kind of triggered all these positive feelings for her. So when she got to school, she was a completely different child. She'd be happily going in. So it made, something as random as that. You wouldn't say cycling is really good for your kids so that they'll start school really happily. Like, you would never think of that. But it's absolutely true. And I have heard it a lot from other friends that they've had the same sort of experience, that cycling gives their kids this more confidence, this level of additional confidence, and it makes a big difference in their lives. Mm-hmm. Even now, I think sometimes I'll say to her, right, we're going for a bike ride tomorrow. You are in charge of what you wear. You need to think about what's happened in the past, what you have available to wear, what the conditions are going to be like. Are you going to be hungry? You need to pack snacks. Are your hands going to get cold? You need to have gloves. Wear appropriate clothing. Do you need a coat? Do you not need a coat? Are you going to put your basket on your bike, or are you going to need your pannier bag? And she can think of all those things and make those plans so she has what she needs, rather than it being very much, oh, I'm packing everything and I'm just putting it in the boot of the car and you're just going to sit in the car and be completely passive. No, she has to make decisions. She has to do critical thinking. She has to take responsibility for herself, because it's, at the end of the day, she's pedaling. even to the extent that she can't take too many things because she's going to have to carry that weight herself. Yeah. So it's just, it's mind-boggling how many benefits I've got from cycling, and yet it's only a minority of people who really appreciate and understand that, and the rest of the world are thinking, why would you do something so inconvenient when you could just jump in a car?
Mm-hmm. So this is a nice point. I would like to move on, like the bike as an educational tool, where you have a lot of nice experience with your children. So now you have this Instagram channel where I think you put a lot of your experiences and inspirations into the videos. So what is your or do you have a central goal you want to achieve with this channel?
Yeah.
I mean, this is always, of course, it should be fun. I think this is also one of your goals, and biking is fun. But is there a bigger idea behind, or a bigger goal you would like to reach?
Yeah, I guess there's two things. I have this. We all see things on social media, and it affects us, even if we don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think in the UK, so many things we see through media, through adverts, are all actually bad for us. They're all advertising and selling us subconsciously things which are attractive, things which are the norm, and those things are actually not good for us. So, like in my studies, I mentioned before we started recording, I'm doing a PhD in lifestyle intervention. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to doctors about, they're trying to encourage their patients to be more healthy, but they're like, I have a 10-minute chat with my patient once a month, and then the rest of the time they are being bombarded by advertising saying, get some more fast food, get a better car, do unhealthy things, basically. And how are we meant to be dealing with that? So my idea with the Instagram was to try and influence people, but to do things that will make their life better, and to show, oh, here I am having a great time on my bike. Does it make you want to go onto your bike? Mm-hmm. And slowly over time, normalize, everyday cycling. Normalize, say, a random woman like me cycling. I'm not particularly athletic. I'm not like a full-on hippie. Maybe a little bit of a hippie. but yeah, to normalize it and influence a bit, normalize a lot. And then ultimately, I've written a book, and I would really like to be able to publish that and get it out to a wider audience, because with social media, it is a little bit tricky that the algorithm is going to bring you people who are similar to you already. So I did recently do a little poll to say how many of you are serious cyclists, well, frequent cyclists, how many of you cycle a bit, how many of you don't cycle. And to be honest, the majority of people who responded were already cycling, mm-hmm. and they would consider themselves frequent. So in that way, I can be making videos saying cycling is great, mm-hmm. for viewers who already think cycling is great. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to be able to expand a little bit more. And it's my hope that by writing this book and hopefully getting it published, getting it into bookshops as well, it can open the opportunities a little bit about what transport can be, what lifestyle can be, what staying healthy can look like in a more achievable, relatable way.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very curious about your experiences of your reels or your videos. You're doing one video a day since March, and that's really great. And what reactions do you get? The good ones also, and do you also get critical reactions or bad reactions?
Andrea, you are giving me a lot of credit. I have recently eased up, so I'm now doing one every other day. Okay. But I did do one a day for a while, and it was great. I think it was good when I was first starting to just learn what I was comfortable with and what worked for me. But to be honest with you, the reaction has been really very positive. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've had a handful of negative comments. I've been really fortunate that I haven't had inappropriate DMs or like abusive DMs or anything like that, because I do keep my DMs open so anyone can actually message. I'm really fortunate, actually. I don't normally look at all my numbers and things, but I was watching a video of a lady on Instagram who has a massive following, and she was saying she's just not able to hit her target audience. She's making content for women in the UK, and her following is predominantly men, sort of globally over the world. And I was looking at my numbers, and actually it's sort of 70% women, UK and Europe base. There is quite a few in Canada, actually. The Canadians seem to really get me. But but I think I'm very fortunate in that I do seem to be reaching my target audience of people who are interested in at least hearing about this kind of thing. And luckily I haven't got onto any anti-cyclists radar so far.
Okay, fortunately.
Fingers crossed. But I guess it can inevitably happen. It is a valid concern. I think we have to just do we do what we can. I must say I don't act particularly controversial, so I stay away from very difficult topics, because I do think there are a lot of accounts which already tackle these controversial issues. And it's my idea or my ambition to make cycling seem really welcoming. So I don't necessarily want to wade into big debates. Although someone did suggest if I got a bit of controversy going, then I might get more
Numbers
views.
Get up. So what?
But it's been okay so far.
What I'm wondering is, what you're talking about is also that. Also, through your content, there is some change in culture in the UK in terms of using bikes also for daily transportation. But obviously, same in Germany, there are also infrastructural barriers. So what would be, from your perspective, maybe the biggest lever where the infrastructure should and could change to bring more people on a casual biking, daily biking behavior?
Yeah, I think it's quite ambitious, I suppose, but what's been done in some places is having streets for bikes, parallel to cars. And personally, I would like to see cars and bikes split for some parts of the journeys. Everyone's different, and it affects everyone differently. But I think if we really want to open up cycling, we have to have really not even cycle lanes, because they can be, so small. They're often just next to really fast cars, and they can be they can be implemented in ways that are not actually that useful. But I think having roads that are just for cyclists, or just entry for cars but not seen as a through route anymore. So I think really funneling cars, people who are driving should be using certain roads, and maybe more residential streets should be for bikes where possible. It is really tricky because it depends whether there are those alternatives, whether there are two roads more or less going in the same way. But I don't think that cycle lanes on their own are enough, because cycle lanes can be, really brutal as well. If you start to get high levels of cycling, you'll end up with a lot of very, very fit, very fast cyclists going, really fast. They're still not enough for you to be able to cycle with your child, and they're not really good enough for, say, the elderly, or for people who have slightly different kinds of bikes, so maybe adapted cycles in some way. So until we're able to include those different people in society, I don't think we can see the kind of change that we'd like to.
Mm-hmm. So here you have a great vision of a sustainable city. So I am curious, what would you do if you were transportation minister in the UK?
Yeah, I love this question, actually. I hadn't really thought about it, but What I think I would probably like to do, I really don't think the only incentivizing cycling works. I think you also have to make it a little bit less pleasant to drive, because humans are often creatures of convenience, you know. And interestingly, Leicester is making it harder to drive because there's too many cars. So there's not because the traffic is so bad now and there's nowhere to park when you get to your destination, it makes cycling more attractive, which is quite interesting. So I think reducing parking spaces, really pushing the fact that cycling again is seen as, you know, for really fit people, but absolutely not. You know, you can cycle with your hands, you can have adapted bikes. So really opening that market up and subsidizing it, I would probably want to do, so that people who have, you know, limited mobility can see cycling as an option, rather than, oh no, I have to have the car, you can't remove these parking spaces, or what about drivers, what about people who have to drive. I really would love as well to introduce some car-free days, you know, now and then, like on a Sunday, once a month or something like that, so that people can be aware that there are other options. Oh, and probably the biggest one is I would love to prioritize around schools, around school drop-off and pick-up times, especially primary schools, just closing the roads around the school to cars, because I don't think that's what we should be wanting for our children, to be having all this traffic around their schools, to be having the noise, the fumes. And I think when people see how nice it is without cars, it's quite impressive, and it makes them think, because I just don't think we realize we've normalized it so much. But, you know, having a car go past you really fast is a horrible experience, whether you're a pedestrian, whether you're walking, pedestrians and walking is the same. whether you're walking or cycling or scooting, whatever you're doing. And I think when you see what it's like, that to not have cars around a school, to have kids able to walk really freely, I would really like that, because I think it would prioritize pedestrians. And I really think, I complain about this around my daughter's school, that as pedestrians, we have it's a very old style, narrow pavement. You've got some parents walking with their kids this way, you've got parents walking that way, you've got dogs, and you've got, you know, little kids on bikes and scooters, and we're all crammed in here. Then we've got a row of parked cars, which are opening their doors into us, which are coming in to turn around onto the pavement right in front of us. Then we've got sort of two rows of very narrow traffic, which is at standstill most of the time. Then we've got another row of parked cars, and then we've got another tiny pavement. So it's like, actually the pedestrians are being put right at the bottom of the totem pole, even though they are really the most important. And that's the kids.
It's not
are
democratic.
All pedestrians,
it's
right?
not democratic.
Not at all. And this is small children, do you know? This is
most vulnerable.
This is my daughter's primary school, and it's really dangerous. Actually, it's really terrifying as a parent. You're like, where are the kids? Where are they? And it really incentivizes you to drive, actually, because at least in the car, you know where your child is at all times. Actually, the few times I'm very fortunate that I haven't I've very rarely driven. Normally when I had to take them to the doctors or something like that afterwards. But I've actually had the experience that I was able to speak to my child much better when they were in the car, because when we're outside the car and we're walking, we can't hear each other. All the cars are going so fast. And I realized that's such a sad thing, that the experience of being in the car, even though it's so inefficient, you're making it unpleasant for everyone else, is superior and is catered for much more. So I'd love to just kind of say, actually, we're going to close these roads every day at 9 o'clock and at 3 o'clock, and really push for. I mean, I'm sorry, you've got me off on one now. I really think what needs to change is the way that we structure our lives. So at the moment in the UK, it's not always the case that if you live near to a school, you go to that school. Sometimes people are going to schools where they actually have to drive their kids because it's quite a long distance. And similarly with work, we've really normalized the idea of driving to work. Choose a job in a different city, choose a job wherever you want, and you'll just drive there every day. And we consider that normal. I think maybe I'm in a privileged position, but I would really like for people to stand up and say, actually, for my lifestyle, I want to choose a school where my kids can walk. And for my lifestyle, I want to choose work where I can walk or cycle or take the bus. Like, I'm no longer willing to accept this car dependency because the cost to my health, to my mental health, to my stress levels, to everything is too high. So I feel like at the moment people just accept it and just see it as normal. But I would love for people to say, actually, maybe that job pays me a little bit more, 10% more, but I'm spending most of that on the car. And the cost to my health is worth more than that 10%, rather than chasing a slightly more pay or a slightly better title. Actually, what's more important is being able to get around and take care of my health and prioritize that time with family. But I also think that needs to come from employers. So I think really the Transport Minister needs to speak to the employers first and change things there. It's a big issue. But yeah, maybe can you try and do something, Andrea? Can you get me into it?
We will do it. We put you in the Ministry for Transportation of the world, not only in the UK.
I think now really nicely changed from like the micro perspective to the macro perspective where we put everything together. Sarah, thank you very much for spending your time with us. But before we end this, we have a little question. We call this entire talk here always Fahrradheldin, so something like cycling heroes. So what we'd like to know from you is, do you have any role model or a personal cycling hero where you say, yeah, this person really inspires me?
So the coolest cyclist I know is probably my 8-year-old. Like, she looks so cool on her bike. What is it with kids? Why are they so stylish? Just effortlessly. She makes cycling look really good. But I think probably my cycling hero would be my mum, because she cycled as a child. This was back in the 1950s, just for fun. She made sure that me and my brother knew how to cycle, and she used to take us just around the neighborhood. Again, it was always for fun. On holidays, we would often hire bikes, and she just kind of kept it on our agenda. And it was only until I got married and I moved to Leicester, which has a much bigger South Asian population. And there's a load of initiatives in Leicester teaching South Asian women to ride bikes. And I didn't realize that it's actually really rare that my mum, growing up in the 50s, did know how to ride a bike. And not only that, she carried on riding, and she enjoyed it, and she sort of sought it out. And now she's having her velo revolution or renaissance, in her 70s. And she just keeps surprising me, when I started cycling more, then my husband got kind of dragged into it, and the kids, and we thought my mum will just be like, you guys go and I'll have a rest. But no, she's really surprised us that every time I thought she would hesitate or be a bit nervous, she's completely blown my expectations. I went to on a travel trip for work last week, or the weekend before that, and I'm sitting there in this conference, and my mum is texting me, and she's like, oh, I'm at the bike park to meet up with this group who are going for a bike ride, but I can't find them. I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm in a different country. I'm messaging the group leader. I said, my mum signed up for this ride. She says she's there. Can you see her? And I'm messaging my mum. I'm messaging her to find out where she is. I'm trying to connect them. And I was just so blown away that she was so keen to go on a ride. She'd even go when I wasn't there to even show her. I didn't even arrange any of that. I didn't sign her up. I didn't take her. But she took it on herself. And the next day, actually, that was a Saturday. And then on the Sunday, I texted my husband, oh, you know, how are you doing? And he said, Mum's gone on a bike ride. So she really surprised me with how much she's put her own enjoyment first and her own health first, which is just such an amazing and important lesson for women of that generation. But even now, you know, contemporary women of my age, millennials, putting our health, putting our enjoyment in a prominent position is really important for our physical and mental health for our whole life. And it's a wonderful example for my children, who have also been very, very impressed. I remember the first time I went with my she wasn't 8, she was 6, I think. And we were going to, I don't know where we were, but we told my mum if she goes to this place in the city centre, she can try out an e-bike. And I was on my way with my daughter and I said, oh, she'll already be there. Do you think she's already got a bike? And my daughter said, no, she'll be too scared to do anything until we get there. But when we got there, she was cycling around. And my daughter was really surprised. So, yeah, definitely, I think my mum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. You started your riding revolution, bicycle revolution. Let's do it together to bring everybody on the bike. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you.
Das war JobRad Fahrradheldinnen zum Hören.